Hal Steinbrenner, owner of the New York Yankees, made some comments yesterday about Yankees payroll, which has enraged a lot of Yankees fans, as always, when you mention payroll and Hal Steinbrenner. And we're here to break it down today with Ryan Garcia from Empire Sports Media and Fireside Yankees. Ryan, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. It's a short week. Got a couple of off days coming up. Can't complain, man.
Yeah, listen, you can't complain. It's Thanksgiving week. It's Turkey week. Listen, our owner here, Hal Steinbrenner, as Yankee fan yourself, me as well, he never fails to provide content for us, especially when he does actually speak to the media. And I thought, yesterday's comments were pretty interesting. I loved seeing fans go back and forth about, the $100 million he pays to the city of New York every year, and we're not a profitable business as the New York Yankees, even though they're reportedly making the most revenue in all of baseball. But look, no one's going to cry for Hal Steinbrenner and how much money he is or isn't making. The bottom line is this team has not won a World Series in 16 plus years, 15 going on 16 years now. So I want to get your perspective and what you thought Hal was talking about yesterday in two things. Saying that would it be ideal to lower payroll? Of course, because we saw the reports that the Yankees want to keep that payroll in the $300 million range or even less. And the other thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, if a salary cap, which seems that Hal is supporting in the future for CBA talks, if that happens, how that would affect the Yankees' competitive balance. So I just want to hear your thoughts on those two things.
Yeah, so the first in regard to the ideal of being able to lower the payroll, look, I get that anyone would want to win a World Series championship spending as little money as possible, but I think in the Yankee scenario, and Hal even to an extent admitted this, they can't really afford to lower payroll and remain as good of a team, if not better than they were last season. They already have $283 million committed to the payroll. They're probably going to want to add another outfielder. They want to add to their pitching staff. They're going to have to push pretty comfortably over the $300 million mark if they truly want to build a roster they think is capable of winning a World Series. And on the second note, with the Yankees and their situation right now, I don't know if the salary cap is going to hurt them as bad if the salary cap is around $360 or $370 million. I guess that number is where it hurts their competitive balance. The other question is, how high is the floor? I see a lot of discourse of setting the floor around like 140 or 150 million, but realistically, what is that changing? Is an extra $30 million going to make the Pirates a good team? Probably not. So in regards to the cap, it's got to be a high cap for the Yankees to not lose their competitive edge. It's got to be a range where the Dodgers have to spend less, but the Yankees wouldn't have to spend less as well in that scenario.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I find it funny that the owner of the Yankees is in support of a salary cap. Like you're pigeonholing yourself and you're making it harder for you to build a winner. You're the New York Yankees. You have the most revenue. You're the biggest franchise you can argue in the sporting world, right? You're an iconic thing. And to abuse that, not abuse that superpower as much as they can and use those resources feels funny. It feels like they're trying to act like a small market ball club where we're heavy on analytics, we're heavy on our approach of scouting and development, which, mind you, I am fine with. But you're not using your biggest superpower, which is money, and how you can take advantage of that. So let's go, Ryan, to the big question of, with Hal's comments, does this mean that the Yankees could be affected now that Trent Grisham did accept the qualifying offer at $22 million, the re-signing of Cody Bellinger? Does this put them out of the price range for Cody Bellinger's future?
I think the Yankees will still pretty aggressively pursue Cody Bellinger and will make an offer that I think will have a good chance of bringing him back. The way I evaluate Bellinger's market is that his profile is best suited for Yankee Stadium. So if your teams, and we kind of talk about how teams come about signing players, they have their internal evaluations, they determine at what price point that player is worth, they put together these offers. The likelihood of a team having an internal valuation that Cody Bellinger will produce a higher OPS with them than with the Yankees is 0%. Like there's no chance the Mets, for example, think Bellinger will perform as well with them as Bellinger would with the Yankees. So I do expect that the Yankees will have one of the best offers on the table just because the fit is so good with Bellinger's swing here. And if he were not a Yankee, he would likely produce less offensive value. I don't think Hal's comments change where I stand on what they'll do or what I think they'll do. It just serves as kind of this, oh, really? Did you have to? Like, sometimes when he talks, it's just, I don't really want to hear it. As you alluded to at the beginning of the show, most Yankee fans are just average individuals in the United States, no one wants to hear about like a billionaire's lack of profit on the most valuable sports franchise in baseball. Like no one wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that. No one wants to hear that. So it's optics bad, but I don't think it's something that I'm taking practically as this is going to affect their roster.
Okay. I mean, that's one way to look at it. And I agree with you. You're saying it's not going to affect, but I think for me, I'm taking those comments to heart where it's like Hal clearly wants to lower the payroll. He doesn't want to spend as much. And it could affect their chances of re-signing a Cody Bellinger. I also think, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, the Cody Bellinger market, you're saying the Yankees probably have a higher value on him because of the Yankee Stadium, but other teams might value the defense that he brings, the versatility that he can play multiple positions. And I think the bottom line is I'm getting funny feelings about this Cody Bellinger free agent market. It's reminding me a lot of the DJ LeMahieu free agency where the Yankees are bidding against themselves because DJ wants a ton of money, and if you have to spread it over more years, the Yankees ended up going with 6-year deal, when in actuality they should have done a 4-year deal and paid him more money up front with higher AAV. The Yankees don't want to go high AAV because that's going to affect their quote-unquote salary cap, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, man. Like, part of me thinks that the Yankees might be better off not playing in the Bellinger waters because I don't think that contract's going to age well. When you're talking about a potential 5 or 6 year deal for a player that's over 30 years old, he's going to get worse defensively every year. It's Mother Nature. A player gets worse athletically and defensively as they get older. So if you're paying him for his elite defense in center and left, you have to think 2 or 3 years into that deal, it's going to get worse. So I wonder, is it really the juice worth the squeeze if you do end up signing Bellinger 6 years? I am cautiously like, maybe you're better off not signing him to a 6-year deal. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's look across town at what just happened with Brandon Nimmo, a fan favorite player who they gave too many years to lower that annual average salary. Brandon Nimmo went from a fast, defensive-minded center fielder who could hit a lot to someone who couldn't play center field, then was a mediocre left fielder, and left field in Citi Field is easier than right field in Citi Field. They had Juan Soto out in right field, who's not a very good defensive player, and then they traded him for a aging, old, not in his prime Marcus Semien, who has 3 years left on his deal. So that should be caution for the Yankees. You should not give out these 7 or 8 year contracts to lower the annual average salary. And mind you, with Nimmo, he put up 5.5 wins above replacement, had a higher OPS than Bellinger, OPS plus, when he hit the market.
Yeah.
And he was a year younger. So yeah, for the Yankees, I would prefer if they were going to say, hey, do you want $150 million? Let's do it over 5 years, not 6 years, because you want to pay for their best years, and paying $30 million versus $25 million for first year or second year Cody Bellinger, that's worth it. That's still worth the money. What won't be worth the money is when you're paying $25 million and Bellinger's DFA'd after year 5. That's what you don't want.
Right. I again, 5 years still is I have question marks about that because that contract, again, will not age well at all. And that's why I'm wondering if the Yankees are better off going after a Kyle Tucker and investing heavily in that. I know it's going to cost way more money. It's going to be longer in years in term, but he's a better, I would say, hitter and also a younger player that you're investing in. And the other thing I would ask you is how do they pivot if, let's say, they don't get priced into the Bellinger market and they get priced out of it? Where do they pivot? Because I can imagine after Hal's comments, they're not going after Kyle Tucker. So how would they pivot with left field? Trent Grisham's in center, Judge is in right. How do you see them pivoting in left field? Does Jason Dominguez get the start there?
So first, when it comes to Kyle Tucker, I'm in full agreement. Kyle Tucker is the kind of hitter that you put next to Aaron Judge, and you don't have to worry about your offense at all next year. He is a perennial 135 to 145 OPS plus hitter. He's got a very high walk rate, a low strikeout rate. He is one of just 3 hitters to have more walks than strikeouts in the last 2 years. That's Luis Arraez and Juan Soto as his company there. He can hit 30 home runs here. And as you mentioned, when we talk about Hal Steinbrenner and his reputation, if he goes out and he signs Kyle Tucker, I think a lot of fans would be promptly shut up by the comments and say the comments, they didn't affect how he was going to act. That was not an indication of how he was going to act. He just spoke and he said things I didn't like, but his actions were different. Hal is going to be judged on his actions, and he should be judged on his actions more than his words. When it comes to alternative plans, I think you could bring in a right-handed hitting outfielder like an Austin Hayes to platoon with Jason Dominguez and full focus on the pitching staff and improving your run prevention. That was the path they took last year when they lost Juan Soto, and it was a path that resulted in them being a pretty good team this past year. I thought they were a an effective roster that just didn't come through in the postseason, not like a fundamentally flawed team that showed up and just had all their flaws exposed. Starting pitching was a strength. It was not a strength in the ALDS. So I think that if you wanted to go down the really cheap route, starting pitching, bullpen arms, and then bring in, again, a right-handed hitting outfielder to play against lefties instead of Jason Dominguez.
Yeah, look, Bellinger would just be adding another left-handed bat to the lineup, which is already a favorably left-handed lineup as it is. I think they need a right-handed bat. An outfielder would be great. And like you said, Hayes is not a bad option. I wonder if Garcia, who just got DFA'd by the Rangers, could be an option. I know he's not as good as he was, but I also wonder if he's worth a flyer if you want to go the cheaper option. The thing for me, too, is the starting rotation, and I think you bring up a good point here, and I wanted to ask you about this. I am not counting on Cole and Rodon for the first 2 to 3 months of the season. I think it's bananas. Even Hal mentioned it yesterday. We're going to have to get through April. Like, he slipped in, like, I really feel strong about our rotation. Now, we have to get through April. Now, April, we know, is a month where the Yankees seem to surge, and then they have the June swoon and the July swoon, and they just become really average to below average baseball team. I wonder if they are overestimating what this rotation is going to be. You're counting on a 36-year-old Garrett Cole coming back from Tommy John surgery. You're counting on Carlos Rodon, who's in his 30s, to come back from, bone chips in his elbow surgery. Who knows when he's really coming back and being effective. You're relying on Will Warren, while he was the second most innings pitched, I believe, for an AL for a rookie pitcher. You're relying on him to come back and get the ball every fifth day. You're relying on Luis Gil, who was injured a lot of last year and only had that 1 year that was really good. And then you're relying on Max Fried, who has historically battled injuries, to stay healthy throughout the entire year again. So there's question marks all around this rotation, Ryan. And that's why I think a pitcher like Ime from Japan is worth the investment. If you can make a trade for an ace like Skubal, is worth the investment. If you can go get a Michael King that can start for you and then go into your bullpen, which is already depleted, in my opinion, besides the 3 horses that you got, you can do those things. How do you see the Yankees valuing their starting rotation, and do you see them being aggressive in this market to get more help in the starting rotation?
So let's talk about Tatsuya Mai in this conversation, because he kills 2 birds with 1 stone.
Correct.
He not only brings in a starter, but he also gets the Yankees back into the Japanese market. There's a big wave of Japanese players coming over from 2028 to 2029. It would behoove the Yankees to prove to those pitchers, hey, look at what we did with Imai. We turned him from a guy who was coming over, projecting as a number 3, and he became a playoff anchor for us, one of our best starting pitchers, so on and so forth. And in regards to the rotation, I share the same concerns. Does anyone remember the last notable left-handed Yankee at 33 years old to get bone chips removed from their throwing elbow? That was Zach Britton in 2021, and he was never the same after, retired just 2 years later. Not saying Rodon's going to go through the exact same thing, but that did happen. Walker Buehler is in his 20s, and his career, it's in shambles after Tommy John.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, Ryan. Like, people are expecting Rodon and Cole just to come back and be automatic aces again. It's like, whoa, this is elbow surgery for these pitchers, and they're in their 30s. Like, the Yankees would be crazy to count on these guys to be absolute studs as soon as they come back. It's going to take time for them to build up.
I think Justin Verlander has kind of broken people's minds on what the average old starting pitcher does. It's kind of like the Tom Brady effect, where because Tom Brady did it for so long, everyone's like, yeah, quarterback primes are just longer now. It's like, well, no, age is still a thing. There are some outliers, sure, but like, we could, for every Justin Verlander, there's a Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw who are not nearly as effective at this stage of their career. Max Scherzer at age 36, this was his 2021 year. He was still very effective. Goes with the Mets a year later, age 37, age 38. That's when you start seeing the fall off. But there was no Tommy John in that window. For someone like a Clayton Kershaw, he just called it a career. He's in his late 30s. I'm just saying it all to say that Garrett Cole is coming back from major arm surgery, and Carlos Rodon has been an oft-injured pitcher who is coming back from an arm surgery. So, no, I shouldn't rely on that, and I shouldn't be relying on Clark Schmidt coming back from Tommy John. As you alluded to, is Luis Gil going to be consistently healthy? The history would tell us no. For Will Warren, is there a leap there? For Cam Schlittler, is there a leap there? Maybe, sort of. You're hoping for that, but as you mentioned, just go get an impact starting pitcher. You can never have too much pitching. And what is the month that statistically is the most injury-prone when it comes to UCL tears? March. So when we talk about getting through April, you got to get through March. You're going to lose 1, 2, maybe 3 of these guys before you even roll into the year. And at that point, you've got Alan Winans taking the ball. You've got
Ryan
Carlos
Yarbrough
Carrasco coming back. Yeah, I mean, that's just not a rotation. You're not winning baseball games with that. So you need to add a starting pitcher. I would have my number one on my board of realistic targets. I don't know if Skubal's getting traded, and if so, if that would be to the Yankees. But he's number one on my board. I like King a lot. If a trade was there with one of maybe the Minnesota pitchers, that's something that intrigues me as well. But they need to go get an impact starting pitcher for sure.
Could not agree more. It's I think it'd be crazy for them to rely on these guys to come back healthy and automatically be elite level pitching when they make their returns from their injuries. Finally, the bullpen. I've asked Joel about this, and he's like, "Look, no, they love Bednar, they love Duvall, they love what they have there in the back end with Fernando Cruz, who they got last year as well." I am gonna be honest with you, Ryan. Like, besides Bednar, I think it's a lot of question marks in that bullpen as well. You lost Devin Williams, who did not have a great year by any means, but still pitched a lot of important innings for you last year. Luke Weaver pitched a lot of innings for them last year. I feel like they need to get another elite bullpen arm. I don't know if it's going to be high priced. I wonder if they're going to find something, again, like a Fernando Cruz, where they make a trade and it's a guy that's like, all right, maybe has elite level stuff and just hasn't developed into what they hope. How do you see the Yankees attacking the bullpen through this offseason?
So I think the route of like finding their guy has been the Yankees' route for years now. And so I'm going to assume that's the route they take.
Yeah.
And with the Rockies having a new president of baseball operations in Paul DePodesta, I think it's a real chance that they go out there and like maybe the Rockies trade somebody. I would look at Victor Vodnik, who is one of the hardest throwing relievers in the sport. His average fastball velocity was the 6th highest, right behind Ryan Helsley and Robert Suarez, who are some of the guys who are going to get paid a significant chunk of money. Sitting at 98.7 miles per hour, he had a 3.02 ERA, gets a lot of ground balls, really good changeup, which the Yankees like. You think of Weaver, Williams, the splitters with Leiter, the splitters with Bednar as well, and Cruz. So off-speed pitches are a big thing the Yankees like adding. Victor Vodnik would be just an awesome addition, just elite level stuff. And the Yankees need more velocity. I think we can look at this bullpen and say there are not a lot of guys who can just overpower you with raw stuff. Now, Vodnik is more of a project guy. He is not the established top level closer that someone like a Edwin Diaz is or Robert Suarez is, but given that they need an outfielder and they need starting pitching help, is it really the wisest decision to give up $20 million or $18 or $17 million per year for a reliever? Probably not. So I would say Victor Vodnik, like, he's got 4 years of control. I know he's going to cost a good bit on the trade market, but I'm willing to make that deal. And he's pre-arbitration, so doesn't affect any of your other financial plans. And it's not like the trade market is where you expect the Yankees to be the most active for position player help. So, Ryan, I think you bring in a guy who throws at 99 and you take him away from Coors, who he already had a 3.02 ERA there. That guy could be a star over here.
I agree with you, man. Look, the bottom line is, though, the Yankees are going to have to spend. No matter what Hal Steinbrenner wants to say about the money and the payroll, yesterday saying, is there a correlation between spending the most money and winning a championship? I still think it's a weak correlation. When he was asked about the Dodgers winning a championship at spending the most money this past season, in fact, the Dodgers won back-to-back World Series, Hal, and they have the highest payroll in baseball. So the sample size is only growing bigger. And let's not forget, your father had the highest payroll in the 90s, and they won a lot of championships that way. There is a strong correlation. Even though he says sample size of data is not very big, but they earned every bit of it in the Dodgers. There was nothing low about my payroll and the Mets payroll, and look where we ended up. Okay. I think it's all about... Yeah, go ahead.
That's just stunning to me. I mean, when it comes to the Dodgers, they're a model organization. You talked about like the Yankees, they care a lot about analytics and pro scouting. The Dodgers do too, but they also spend so much money that they're able to take their elite level process and roster decision making and player development and give it the funds it needs to be just incredible. Imagine if you took like the Tampa Bay Rays and you gave them a $300 million payroll. That would be a juggernaut of a team. And in the Yankees case, look at the two big off seasons they've had in the last decade or last 2 decades. 2009 is probably the most infamous off season. They won a World Series championship. And I want to point to the off season leading up to 2024. The Yankees were considering running a payroll of like $330 million because they were going to try and sign Yamamoto after trading for Soto. If the Yankees had Yamamoto and had that $330 million payroll and the Dodgers did not have Yamamoto, the 2024 World Series champions would have been the New York Yankees. Yep. So yeah, paying does result in winning. Imagine if the Yankees like didn't pay Judge or didn't pay Cole and went with plan B, which would have been Steven Strasburg, bad.
Ryan, Cashman didn't want to pay Judge. Remember this.
Imagine if they went and signed Brandon Nimmo as their plan B. How would that have gone? Carlos Correa is their plan. Like, these plan Bs, these B-tier stars, like, it doesn't work.
Plan B, I think, worked last year, though, with Soto, right? The pivot. Like, going to Bellinger, going to a defensive approach, and getting Devin Williams. Like, they went full on, like, we're going to focus on the defense of this team. That's where part of me is wondering, again, if Bellinger is the key for this Yankees offseason. If they don't sign him as plan A, what is their plan B pivot, and how do they make it work? I think there are still some smart, savvy moves you can make that you've highlighted to address the bullpen, address the defense, address left field, probably get some more infield depth that could be right-handed, part of your lineup. And ultimately, they need to attack this rotation. I really would love to see them sign Imai. I think it would be a great addition for them, and I think it can really strengthen something that people are saying, oh, it's already a strength. No, you can make it even stronger, and you can make it more certain going into next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when we just talk about what we want this team to look like, it's not that they need to go out and sign every big name out there. They just need to make sure they address all their holes. Don't have an incomplete roster. We answered last year without a third baseman. If you had a third baseman, you probably win the division. And who knows how that ALDS goes if you're playing the first 2 games at home. We know Fried had his struggles against the Blue Jays in Toronto. I'm not accusing them of cheating or anything of the sort. I'm just saying maybe it's the mound. Maybe he's just not comfortable up there. I don't know. But you just change a variable. Who knows what happens? You can't have an incomplete roster. You've got to look at your checklist and make sure everything is checked off. Because as you mentioned, that plan B would have worked brilliantly if they just had even a cheap infielder, just somebody who could have played third. That would have been a 96, 97 win team.
Yep.
That is a juggernaut. Like that, relative to the league, of course, that is a juggernaut win.
You have to play the Red Sox in the wild card round. The Blue Jays would have had to play the Red Sox, and it would have been
and pitch game 1, which is really big for them. Heel was, I'm sorry, he just wasn't a competitive watch at times. So, it's just you have to make sure you have a complete roster going into this year, which they're capable of doing it if Hal signs the check.
That is correct. That's the bottom line. And as always, Ryan, we appreciate you hopping on here for us at the New York Post and discussing Yankees baseball, and especially when Hal Steinbrenner decides to talk to the media and the fans. We'll catch you next time, Ryan, and enjoy your Thanksgiving, sir.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving all.